been it's been kind of hard to fully wrap my brain around this happening. One, because it makes zero sense.
What happened?
The Maxi Kleber trade.
The Mavericks traded Luka.
But like, I'm trying to think of like what, like I went on your show in the immediate aftermath. I did,
Sure.
You did that. You
2
did
o'clock
that
in the morning.
Yeah, like 3 or 4 hour vent session with Mavericks fans. Which the last time I did that, you guys were celebrating the fact that you had punched your ticket to the
Game 5
finals.
of the Timberwolves. Yeah, that was really late at night. That's right.
Yeah, so I hopped on then, and that was a really fun thing. And I said, "Man, enjoy this. This is great. You have this guy, and it's going to be this thing that runs forever." My bad for like the world's worst jinx job ever. Now, the next time I talk to you in that kind of a setting, it's people venting about the fact that you just traded the heir apparent to Dirk. They keep on trying to explain.
No, we have to use the proper. Is it pronoun? Because Nico Harrison is the center of this. So the Mavericks need to be replaced by Nico fucking Harrison, which is his legal name in Dallas after this. Not the Mavericks. So shoe salesman operated in silence on this one.
How does he get the ability to do that? Like, he was saying, he kept on like bragging about the fact that people were laughing at him for the mere notion of doing this.
There's a whole bunch to unpack here. So for Lakers fans who quite reasonably wouldn't have seen what happened, so let's sort of walk through the order. At midnight, when the trade kind of gets announced, Tim McMahon of ESPN immediately has an awkward statement that shows the 50,000 foot view. This is why the Mavericks have opted to trade Nico Harrison. The very next tweet,
Luka, you prefer they trade
why Nico Harrison traded Luka. The very next tweet, after a statement from Nico, was sources from the Mavericks say, and go on to talk about fitness levels, concern, blah, 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 blah. Guys, I wonder who the source was. Was it also Nico Harrison? Was it Nico Harrison stacked up 3 times under a trench coat? Like, the problem that I have with all this is that there's a base level of assumption that most fans are stupid. I kind of get behind that, judging by how people yell at you and me. But the people who really pay attention are not stupid. The people who are really tuned in, it's very easy to connect the dots. So it's very easy to figure out it's Nico Harrison. So we obviously go through the night. Everybody's kind of like, what is happening? Lakers fans are in a state of perpetual shock. And I think that we'll talk about that a little bit later. There's a press conference because the Mavericks play the Cleveland Cavaliers the next day. And when I say the Mavericks, it was like the faux Maverick. It was the Mavericks were down 90-40 at halftime. It was a painful game. But before the game, there's a press conference with Nico Harrison. And this bumblefuck gets up in front of the entire media and tries to crack a joke.
Insane.
And tries to crack a joke and goes through and explains his rationale for the trade, but he's contradicting himself mid-thing. He's shook. Like, that's got to be like a thing that I want really put forth. He is shook because this is 12 hours after the trade, and it's very clear he does not understand what's going on. He makes a snide comment about fans. He said when talking about culture, he's asked a question about culture. He says, I don't want to, point out any specific players. And it's like, motherfucker, you traded Luka Doncic. And I'm sorry I'm cursing so much. I'm still very fired up about this. I'm going to be.
Honestly, it would be weird if he didn't.
I'm going to be for some time. And so he's talking, and he just kind of continues to bury himself with comments. He pointed out Rob Pelinka laughed at him when making the offer, didn't believe him. He pointed out the governor, Patrick Dumont, laughed when brought up the subject. And then at the end noted that if this doesn't work out, he's gonna end up like buried. And it was a very weird statement about how the future is only 3 to 4 years from now. Like, keep in mind that 3 to 4 years from 2025 is when the Dallas Mavericks start to owe draft picks that he has traded away, which is part of the team building process. That's not a criticism. So Anthony brings up this press conference, which most people will have never seen, and that's okay. Why would you watch a Mavericks press conference? But it was the table setting, and it was so awkward. I just wanted to sort of lay that out there. Like he starts to just try to justify the trade almost immediately. And what's been very clear as the day goes on, days have gone on, so now it's the end of Monday evening. From Sunday to Monday, so roughly 48, 60 hours after the trade, Nico Harrison, Dallas Mavericks GM, thought he made a move that would frustrate Mavericks fans, but that in the end would be accepted by Mavericks fans. And folks, hasn't worked out that way.
Here's a clip of that, just like a 30-second excerpt of that presser with him and Jason Kidd.
In your mind, when you pull the trigger on it, I'm just curious what convinced both of you that you will not be wrong.
Well, let's be clear. I'm the one making the decision, and Jay's supportive of it. So it's me. I don't do anything that's scary. I think everything that we do, we put a lot of work into it. We study it, and we restudy it, and we go back, and I understand the magnitude of it. So the easiest thing for me to do is do nothing, and everyone would praise me for doing nothing. But we really believe.
Shout out to Jason Kidd for sitting there in that cuck chair.
As proudly as he was. That was insane. Like
Jason Kidd drives me crazy. He didn't know about this. I think he understood it could happen, but I don't think he knew about this.
Well, that's the thing. I had heard, some of like the framing around it, in like league circles or whatever you want to call it, was like, yeah, Jason, he had like coached AD. He liked this deal. Like they won a championship together. Da, da, da. And then you fast forward to that moment and you're like, that does not look like a man who was excited to coach Anthony Davis, who also, by the way, I said this in yesterday's show with Raj, I feel terrible for the, have you looked at the mentions on the Dallas Mavericks post where they said like Anthony Davis is in Dallas? He's in an impossible spot. Like, and I know he's probably really far from your brain. It's just like, it's a brutal spot.
We'll probably return to it, but I don't think anyone is going to be terrible to Anthony Davis or to Gabe or to Gabe. Who did we trade? We didn't trade for Gabe Vincent. I wish. For the other guy.
Honestly, given what you guys got, like
whatever. The other guy, Max Christie. So yeah. Anyway, it's wild, man. It's nuts.
So we saw the protests outside the American Airlines Center. We saw, again, your post went viral, an open letter to Nico Harrison. There has been any number of posts kind of outlining and detailing the extent to which Mavericks fans feel betrayed in this moment. Kirk, I'm not kidding. I don't know if they ever recover from this.
Well, I mean, we're in the moment here, and sometimes you can say things and analyze things in the moment. But the challenge is the further you get away from this trade and the more we learn about it, the more it's become clear that within modern sports history, this might be the worst trade ever. Mm-hmm. Like somebody on my chat brought this up that maybe the Mookie Betts trade was pretty bad.
Yeah, or like Wayne Gretzky back in the day, and I think it was made in '98. But like the fact that we have to like go back to either 1998 or Mookie Betts, or like we have to cross sports. It's the worst trade in NBA history, as of right now. And if he like gets and or stays in shape, then I don't know if the Mavericks ever really recover. Like, I don't know how they ever look at that fan base in the face and be like, yeah, I know that you have to watch Luka go over there in LA and win potentially championships, plural, while Anthony Davis, like, I like Anthony Davis. He's a good dude. He is going to help your team this year, not to the extent that they're hoping, but like, he's 32. Luka is going to be entering his prime when Anthony Davis is getting ready to retire. I don't know how they ever like live this one down, and then like really importantly here, I thought our mutual friend who works with JJ's old pod, whose name I'm blanking on,
Jason Gallagher.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah. He made a great point. It was like they were aware of the fact that if this leaked out, the fans would be pissed. And so they made a trade and kept it secret, knowing that fans would be pissed, and then now are making jokes at the fact that the fans are pissed. It's insane to me. Like what all of this, none of this makes any sense to me whatsoever from Dallas's standpoint. And
I have some pretty good reasons, and I think I can explain it. I think Nico Harrison thinks he's the hero of this story. I think Nico Harrison firmly believes Anthony Davis is a better player than Luka Doncic. Firmly. When he arrived, and I wrote this in my post, when he arrived, he, not to make a joke of this, but it really is like the phrase like gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss. Like,
yeah,
Nico Harrison traded every single player Luka was close to, or he let Brunson walk. And then he started firing staff that Luka was close to. This isn't like, that's a thing that doesn't really rise to the surface because nobody notices. And
McMahon wrote about this today. They were hoping that doing so would like get Luka more available for.
It didn't make any sense. Like it's honestly, it is like the basketball version of gaslighting. And the reason none of this stuff really got picked up in a big way, it's because the little moves don't matter until you see the whole picture.
Until they do.
And they tried to Nico Harrison, stop saying this. Nico Harrison tried to isolate Luka Doncic to get him to change. Okay?
Yeah.
Luka Doncic, like what 20-something-year-old changes? Okay? And now here's where we get to the point where we talk about why the Mavericks. I'm sorry to kind of bogart this conversation. It's your podcast. I think it's worth talking about why the Mavericks, why Nico Harrison decided that Luka Doncic should be traded. From a 50,000-foot view, if you look at certain superstars, your Sean Kemp's and Allen Iverson are probably two textbook examples of guys that lived hard, that played hard and lived hard.
Yeah.
I think it is disrespectful and borderline is slander spoken, or is it the other, is libel spoken?
Libel.
I think it's borderline libelous what's going on right now with some of the coverage where it's basically implying that Luka Doncic is a drunk. Like that's what's out there right now.
Right.
I'm sorry, guys. Grow the fuck up. Luka Doncic has been a professional since he was 15. He's been able to drink legally since he was the younger person. It's much the I'm sure he's been drinking in some way, shape, or form for 8 to 10 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Coming into the draft, there was an incredible Mina Kimes article that basically knocked his draft stock because he ordered nachos at a restaurant. Do you remember this? We call it double con queso. So the concerns around Luka's fitness and Luka's, let's just call it appetites, I think that's probably a good description, have been a part of the Luka Doncic story the whole time. And what happens, Anthony, when you get in your early 20s and you're still drinking beer regularly? What happens?
I remember vividly.
Your face changes.
My parents,
your body changes.
My parents, the first time I was in really good shape. I was a high school athlete.
Yes, I've seen pictures of you. What happened?
I was going to walk on at Cal State Fullerton. I was in really, really good shape. And then I took a picture because I coached my little brother's varsity team there at my old high school. And we took a picture and we all crossed our arms like this. And under where my arms were crossed was a little bit of a pooch. And my parents were like, whoa, and I feel like that's basically been the reporting over the last like 24, 48 hours is like a bunch of like Dallas-based reporters who have good relationships with Dallas, with the Mavericks, going like, whoa, look at his belly. Look at his nut.
The thing is, it's been this way. And here's the important part, the very important part. Tim McMahon was the only person to ever openly question Luka Doncic's body health as a person. Okay. He's the only one. Anytime I said something, psychopath Luka stands, which you will now get to deal with. Enjoy these people. They make Kobe Bryant fans look like just gentle souls. Basically, bottom line here is, you look at this and you're thinking, okay, the Mavericks decide this is a concern. Nico Harrison decides this is a concern. From a kind of like an argumented point of view, I can understand that, because if you got to pay a guy $70 million a year, which is what was the other part, if you have those concerns, that's a legitimate. I have to admit, that's a legitimate thing. I hate it. I disagree with it. I don't think you ever trade a top 5 player. I think you find a way to work it out, but I will entertain that as a reason. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Then what happened next is where this goes from being a real, like something that many fans feel is criminal and conspiratorial. It's neither, but it is insane. He has one player in mind, and like in a fantasy football league, he identifies the one player that he wants, goes to the Lakers, and as we saw from Ramona Shelburne's reporting today, the Lakers learned from their past mistakes and zipped this up tighter than possible, like anyone could have ever thought possible, largely because all it took Rob Pelinka going is him going, "You want to do what?"
Yeah, right.
Okay, let's have this conversation. Interesting. Yeah. I would have to consider that.
Yeah, we got to think about this for 48 hours. What do you think the 48 hours were like? We were just like, don't fucking move. Don't say a thing.
So when you first saw the trade, like that feeling that you get, that positive fan feeling where it's like, oh my God, the hackles that raise on your neck and your arms. He felt like that for 48 hours. That's how Rob Pelinka felt.
Yeah.
And then, quite brilliantly, he went back to the table and said, you know what? This trade offer, which we have, because they had clearly discussed a very specific offer involving Dalton Knecht, Max Christie, 2 first-round picks, and Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear here. Had they gotten this pick, had they gotten this trade, the Mavericks, I would still be furious. But I could at least look at it and go, here's some stuff. Okay.
I wouldn't have thought Shams was hacked.
Right. You would have gone, man, that's a lot. But holy shit. Okay. And I would still be mad. I'm not going to act like I'm not. I'm not going to be a fraud here. And so instead he comes back to the table and he says, the risks you've identified about Luka are real.
They're real.
What I've understood and probably fed him basically, did like the sales tactic of like repeating what you've been told over and over, where it's like, oh man, this could be bad. This is a risk for us. I'm only willing to offer Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a 2029 pick. Okay.
Yeah.
And he said, and he thought about it the way you think about a good fantasy football trade. And you go, okay. And they walked away.
Yeah.
And I didn't. So what was the piece of reporting that I missed that because they couldn't talk to Luka's agent, was that the reason that Pelinka gave for pulling the additional first round pick off the table? Did you see that today?
I didn't see that.
There was something else. At a certain point it becomes immaterial.
Rob, like if he's going to find any excuse that he possibly can to not be bereft of all of the first rounders he could move in.
That's the point. Yeah, that's one of your bargains. That's one of your things. And as many Lakers fans have pointed out, hopefully the Lakers can go find an actual center. Otherwise, Rui Hachimura is going to be guarding centers. Which congratulations. That's we'll get to that. So anyway, we're looking at this, and that's the return. And like
the Mavericks, Kirk gave up a second rounder in this.
That's so weird. Shout out to keeping Danny. The one funny part that I will admit
that is great,
legitimately funny, is the fact that they kept Danny Ainge in the dark as to what it was for. Like, that's very funny. Congratulations to everyone there. Okay, so that's how we're here, and so I think it's worth talking through, even though I'm sure you've already done it.
No, I think it's important to get this from Dallas's perspective, and specifically the Dallas fan perspective, because this is a weird situation in that the villain here, Kirk, isn't the Lakers fans. Because it's not like we were like thirsting over Luka. I think he's really good. I've always thought he's really good.
I would Lakers fans.
But there's a clear villain here, and it's Nico Harrison, and like. Yeah, I have just found myself as excited as I am to watch this experiment of Luka and LeBron figuring it out. And they're going to eventually figure it out. I'm not worried about that. To me, like I made this joke on the show with Lee, on the other show that I do, Basketball Passport, where I was like, is this empathy? Is this sports empathy? Because I feel all I could think of in the moment was this would have been this would have been like, and I said this to Raj yesterday. Had the Lakers when Kobe and Shaq were going through their stuff, and it's not to say that Kyrie and Luka were like at each other's throats, but when Kobe and Shaq were going going through their stuff, had the Lakers picked Shaq over Kobe, that's what this would have been. Because now, like, there's this reporting out there, and there's a bunch of analysis on this. Like, Dallas felt like it had to operate on Kyrie Irving's timeline, and Anthony Davis better fits Kyrie Irving's timeline. I'm like, what?
Nonsense.
That makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it's nonsense, and it's after the fact justification because this is a PR disaster. I've heard all sorts of stuff today. I want to address the Lakers fans to this before we cycle back to that. My friend Ben took this in a group chat, and he actually tweeted that out, which made me laugh because I didn't even think to tweet it out. Do you understand? Like, and of course, like, fellow Lakers fans, I'm being a little tongue in cheek. I'm being a little bit of an asshole, but a lot of you guys are more self-aware than some of the weirdos on the internet who tweeted Anthony. Do you understand what it takes for a Laker fan to be speechless? To shut the fuck up for 2.5 days and just look around like you've stolen something? That's what's happened.
Yeah.
That's what's happened.
It's like it's just there are no Lakers fans out there I have seen like dunking on Mavs fans who are going through it right now.
Which happens normally. Like I've some weird. I've had some weird people cycling through older lives.
For Anthony Davis, right? When the Lakers traded for Anthony Davis, and they were like Pelicans fans who were going through it and stuff. It was like, bring me that hate, bring me that salt. Let me like bathe in that stuff because of how ugly those negotiations got over the course of the prior year. In this case, it's like, oh my God, like, geez, this is awful, for them. Like, this stuff that Mavericks fans are going through is just like awful. And like, look, eventually Luka's going to get onto the court and it's going to be great. I can't wait to watch him and all that stuff. But this is the very first time where the Lakers acquire somebody else's guy, somebody else that a fan base is rooting for. And it is just such utter shock that even Lakers fans are sitting here and be like, this feels a little icky, But
it's not icky. Like, and I want to make that kind of clear here. There should be no ick involved here because this was a decision made by someone within the Mavericks organization that was empowered incorrectly to make these choices. Who could have possibly predicted that the guy ultimately responsible for fumbling the Steph Curry shoe deal at Nike would also fumble one of the great superstars of all time? The simple fact of the matter, and Ethan Sherwood Strauss wrote this today, Nico Harrison is an example of the Peter Principle. Do you know what the Peter Principle is?
That's the one where you reach a certain level
that's right.
Employment,
Peter
Principle. You exceed employment. You're like, okay, shouldn't have gone that high. Come back down.
This is the Peter Principle in concept. Is a theory which observes that people in a hierarchy tend to rise to a level of respective incompetence. Okay, so he'd been involved in certain things. He might have managed teams, but he was given reign. And when Cuban was still the owner, Cuban was collaborative. But what we had a changeover when Cuban left was very similar to Neil O'Shea with the Portland Trailblazers.
And Pelinka with the Lakers.
Sort of. I still think Pelinka has to answer pretty regularly to Jeannie from your descriptions. I mean, maybe Jeannie gives him a free
I think
pass.
He does that more to protect himself.
Sure.
Like this is something I actually give Pelinka credit for. He doesn't hop out onto that ledge on his own.
He does what I refer to as well, he what Pelinka does is what it might annoy Lakers fans, but he manages up. So he makes his boss feel included while making all the decisions. What we have here in Dallas, and this is crystal clear, is absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
So this man thought that because when he joined the team in 2021 along with Jason Kidd, he thought because the Mavericks went to the Western Conference Finals in 2022 and to the NBA Finals in 2024. He thinks that he is the special sauce. Now, there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh, the Adelsons, blah, 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 which is, if you don't know who the Adelsons are, they're one of the richest families in the world, not America, the world, who own casinos in Macau and in Singapore. They're based in Las Vegas, but they don't own any Vegas casinos. Did you know that? I didn't until looking into all this. Miriam Adelson does not care about the Mavericks. This is a thing because they're trying to get gambling legalized in Texas, and the Mavericks are the tip of the spear. That's what they care about. Maybe there's some concerns about paying Luka Doncic, but I guarantee you $70 million over a year, over 5 years is money that they could find in their couch cushions. This is not a thing. And so I just wanted understood that maybe this will come out later. You know, my favorite conspiracy theory is that this schmuck is going to come work for the Lakers in a couple of years. And if that happens,
he just called Luka fat. He can't work for the Lakers after that.
Sure. I mean, but you know, weirder things have happened because he did his buddy Rob a solid. Maybe not on purpose. Which is
our mutual friend Matt Moore. I don't know if he's written it yet, but he was saying how he was thinking about like writing something. He was like, "Do not employ people from Los Angeles or with Los Angeles ties." Jerry West gave power to the Lakers. You have this one here. Last thing before we get on to the Luka LeBron stuff is, would any of this have happened if Luka was a direct Nike athlete? He's a Jordan guy, which is a subsidiary of Nike. But Nico never had any direct dealings with Luka. He went out and he got PJ Washington, he got Kyrie Irving, got Anthony Davis, all Nike players he had direct dealings with. In this case, he didn't with Luka. Is that like the big detail here that nobody?
I really don't think so. I mean, I really don't think so. It's a fun one though. It's just a fun layer of all this. So.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about this take that is out there. It's making the circles. Why are people concerned about LeBron James and Luka Doncic, two of the smartest basketball players ever to play, not being able to figure out playing together?
I mean, I think if you spend this much time listening to podcasts and you're on a show like this, I think maybe if you don't understand the X's and O's of basketball, you at least know that you don't know and are willing to accept the fact that experts can get away and figure this out. And I'm not calling you and I experts, but I will call LeBron James and Luka Doncic experts.
Yeah.
They will be able to play together just fine. The concerns that come with the Lakers right now are not dissimilar from the concerns that happened with the Dallas Mavericks when they traded for Kyrie Irving in 2022. Okay.
Yeah.
Early 2023. The Lakers don't have any size. The Lakers don't really have any defenders. But I think in the long haul, everyone just goes, okay, we'll figure that out later. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So
I mean, the offense is going to be fun. The offense is going to be fun. Like a Luka, like if you can get either one of those guys to set a screen for one another, it just causes chaos beyond. Like the Luka Kyrie pick and roll was so devastating. What if you had LeBron James? Like there's just so many, like there's so many things. And you know, hopefully JJ Redick will be able, who has a pre-existing relationship with Luka, will be able to get everybody on the same page and say, look, we got to keep the ball moving. We got to keep pushing on offense. We have to play a little faster than you guys might want, but we can take advantage of teams because we have two of the best players in the multiverse on the floor.
Essentially, what the Lakers are going to be doing is generating as many possessions as they possibly can because they're going to be better with their possessions than other teams are going to be with theirs. And, we'll see what that looks like. I'm fascinated by what this is going to look like, but I am genuinely, like, I did your show. I've said it I have done so many radio hits and all that stuff lately, but like I have said it a bunch. I do genuinely feel for Mavericks fans. This is just, I don't know how I would handle this. Like I remember the Russ trade when it happened, and to a certain extent, I don't know if I want to throw out the word ever. I don't know. I've gotten over it. I think at this point, the Caruso aspect of all of that was actually more painful than the Russ trade. This is like so many levels so many multiples more severe than this. And, you know, the other part of it, Kirk, it doesn't add up. None, like, all right, you're a big Occam's razor guy. Like, you are very, you and I, like, I'll fly off the handle. I'll go like 4 levels deep into a conspiracy, and I'll throw it at you, and you're just like, no, that guy's just an idiot, you know. And that could just be the case here with Harrison, that he had too much power and he's an idiot. But also, he's the guy who put together the roster that was just in the finals last year. So I don't know how much of an idiot he actually is. And it's like, all right, he's saying that we got to trade this guy because we're concerned about his fitness. He just got you to the Western Conference Finals. Of all of the active players who have 5 first-team All-NBA awards to their name, Luka is by far the youngest at 25. This guy has clearly found a way to play at that weight and that conditioning level. And yes, eventually that might come back to bite him. He's going to have to figure out some of that stuff, but you would want to try to get him to figure out some of that stuff in your house. And it's like, we didn't want to go into a bidding war because we were concerned about what that would do to the potential return. It's like, you didn't get much of a return. So that doesn't seem to track. Like, none of the explanations here that has been reported, especially from the Dallas side of things, make any sense. Now, there were some whispers in the immediate aftermath of this that, like, Luka was kind of wishy-washy on signing that extension, and that maybe he was interested in the Lakers. If they had gotten a hint of that, they would have reported that, because that makes him the villain.
Right.
I don't necessarily believe that either. So, like, right. There's so much here that doesn't add up. How are you rolling with the Occam's razor thing here? Or, like, where do you land on this? Or is this just like one of those shitty things that happen when the tornado just happens to go over your house?
I mean, he clearly made up his mind. And, you know, he started exploring this trade less than 10 days after Luka hurt himself on Christmas. Like,
yeah.
I really don't think it's nefarious. I think he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room.
And it's not.
No, well, I mean, you know, what I've said is, like, there's a real chance let's just wind it back and say that for this year, the Mavericks somehow figure something out, you know, and are pretty decent. I think what he did to the team was he significantly lowered the ceiling. Like, he may have, like, in the short term, elevated parts of the floor because the defense might be better. I don't really know how some of these pieces fit yet. I'm going to need to see it.
You're going to like Max, and I like.
That's what a lot of people have said. I think he fits with how the Mavericks maybe play, but, like, the problem is, like, you've got basketball terrorist Spencer Dinwiddie playing significant minutes, and he is a terrorist. Make no mistake. Just an absolute, like, he's like Luka Doncic through a fax machine 37 times and doesn't understand why he's not good. I just hate him. This is just a thing where incompetence will reign out, and you know, it's truly horrible because it's detonated basketball fandom. Like, I've heard, I don't know if this is true, but somebody told me today that as many as 5,000 people canceled their season tickets for next year.
Yeah,
that's a lot of people. They've lost sponsors. The Mavericks.
They lost something like 5 figures of Instagram followers overnight because of this. You know, like, again, like, if they wind up being right and Luka is actually that much of a headache and he never really gets into shape and it's all of those stuff, then maybe Dallas lives this down.
I don't think so, because I think, even like, if Luka crashes and burns in his early 30s, you still got 3 to 4 great years ahead of you.
Yeah, well, right. If he wins a championship in LA, it's done. It's done. There's no coming back from that, because that should have been your title, you know. And I just, you know, it's just such a weird situation that has put a lot of people in some really awkward and introspective places. Like, Lakers fans in like looking within themselves, I'm like, man, this kind of sucks. Has been such a wild thing to watch.
Well, and I don't want to be a party pooper here, but you guys have seen it the difficulty of building a team without base level assets when you have to make big trades, right? That's been the whole challenge of building post AD. You're sort of starting over. Like, yeah, you got Luka, and Luka's going to be an all-NBA first-team player. LeBron's going to retire in 1 to 2 years. He is not a positive defensive player anymore, yada, yada. You're just you're not starting from scratch, but you now have a younger building block, but the tools or the pieces that you need to surround that building block are not easy to come by. So it's got to be. It's like wild. I've been explaining to my Lakers friends that are because I went to college out of Pepperdine. You should be really excited about this, but you're really just sort of shuffling pieces around and trying to figure out how something new can work. Now, you certainly can, but like the West is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Like the Rockets are just the perfect regular season team. Memphis is annoyingly good. The Spurs got better overnight. Denver exists. Like there's just so much like, and we didn't even talk about the Thunder. So it's like some of this doesn't get any easier immediately. And it's cool for Lakers fans because now you get somebody different to root for. Because I think a lot of Lakers fans, it's not that you want to see LeBron go, but it's like, okay, how long can this act be drawn out? And now you have something new to bicker about. And that's fun in and of itself.
We'll see where it goes. Kirk, thank you very much for hopping on. Anything that you want to plug before we get you out of here?
I mean, if you're at all bored, guys, head over to mavsmoneyball.com. Like I have posted, just like looking at our homepage right now, I have shared, like by tomorrow morning, there's going to have been something like 25 new pieces from our site in a 2.5 day period. And we're not silver screen and roll. We're not Lakers Nation. We don't have a churn. Like we don't have a bunch of folks that are really writing. We have like a bunch of volunteers. So it's pretty nuts. It's pretty nuts. So
they Pod Maverick, you do that show with Josh. Great stuff there as well. They if you want to get a feel for like what Luka is like on a nightly basis, go out and check some old episodes of that out as well. Kirk and I would imagine are going to be talking about this. Actually, Kirk, I think the family and I are going to be going out there to Dallas for the return, Luka's return.
Yeah,
so maybe we'll all get the.
What day is that on? Do you know? Is that in March or is that
it's
in
like late, a Wednesday? It's like
is that post All-Star break?
Yeah.
Okay, he should be playing by then.
Yeah. He should be playing. It'll be interesting. It'll be like I'm also interested to see what like Anthony Davis's debut looks like. Out there in Dallas too. Please, can you just make sure like each other. Can you guys just like make sure everybody's nice to Anthony Davis? He's a really good dude. He didn't have anything to do with this.
No, I don't think anybody's going to be mean. I think the only thing people aren't going to like about him is if he does the Anthony Davis thing where it's like, we already have Derek Lively and Derek Lively is showing Anthony Davis like tendencies where it's like, how did you hurt yourself? Now, I don't want you guys to be nice to Maxi Kleber, but I want you to understand that he is a very limited role player who means
I don't think he's going to play for the Lakers.
But you have to gaslight him into thinking he's good. Like if you break his confidence, he becomes a withered shell of a man, and it's very sad.
Well, he won't handle the Lakers.
No, like lock. He needs to lock his Instagram comments. Like they're open right now, and that's going to be bad.
I don't think he's going to play for the Lakers though, because he broke his foot in late January, right? So
we like running down the floor. Like we don't even know how he broke.
Yeah,
his foot.
So like he broke his foot,
torn his hamstring off his bone. Like his injury history is preposterous.
I don't think he's supposed to return this year, and then this summer he becomes an $11 million expiring contract. So
really good contract to move. Yeah, that's true.
So I don't think he'll play for the Lakers. That's part of why the Lakers are really like pursuing a center right now, because right now all they have is Jackson Hayes and Christian Coloco, Trey Jemison, and Christian Wood's corpse. So we'll see. But Kirk, this has been an absolute blast, man. Thank you very, very much for hopping on such short notice. Please check out Pod Maverick and all that good stuff. I'm sure that this conversation will be continuing here moving forward. I know I said I was going to do a mailbag, but we are out of time here. I have to honestly, like you guys can see my eyes. I don't have it in me anymore, guys. But I will be back tomorrow, and there's probably going to be a whole bunch of extra emergency episodes over the next couple of days. So we'll go ahead and talk then. So until then, and until the next time you guys hear from us, I'm Anthony Irwin. That was Kirk Henderson. This has been the Lakers Lounge. Have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you tomorrow.